The Big Toe. A boy was digging at the edge of the garden when he saw a big toe. He tried to pick it up, but it was stuck to something. So he gave it a good hard jerk, and it came off in his hand. Then he heard something groan and scamper away. The boy took the toe into the kitchen and showed it to his mother. "It looks nice and plump," she said. "I'll put it in the soup, and we'll have it for supper." That night, his father carved the toe into 3 pieces, and they each had a piece. Then they did the dishes, and when it got dark, they went to bed. The boy fell asleep almost at once, but in the middle of the night, a sound awakened him. It was something out in the street. It was a voice, and it was calling to him. "Where is my toe?" It groaned. When the boy heard that, he got very scared, but he thought, "It doesn't know where I am. It will never find me." Then he heard the voice once more, only now it was closer. "Where is my toe?" It groaned. The boy pulled the blankets over his head and closed his eyes. "I'll go to sleep," he thought. "When I wake up, it will be gone." But soon he heard the back door open, and again he heard the voice, "Where is my toe?" It groaned. Then the boy heard footsteps move through the kitchen, into the dining room, into the living room, into the front hall. Then slowly they climbed the stairs. Closer and closer they came. Soon they were in the upstairs hall. Now they were outside his door. "Where is my toe?" The voice groaned. His door opened. Shaking with fear, he listened as the footsteps slowly moved through the dark toward his bed. Then they stopped. "Where is my toe?" The voice groaned. "You've got it!"
I'm Vanessa Bear. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm 10 years old. And I have OCD. When people say, "Oh, I'm so OCD," it's really not what they think it is.
When I was little, no one really suspected that I had OCD, and then when I turned 12, the OCD kind of just took off. Whenever I looked at a clock, I had to do a certain thing where I had to repeat the time and the date and the year. And then I had to do a thing with my hands, and then I had to blink a certain amount of times. I could only wear certain clothes, and if I wore another shirt or another pants, it would just say something bad would happen to my family or friends.
When OCD first started bothering me, I got really scared of catching sicknesses and getting poisoned. There were 2 bottles, and they were both on trees, and I got afraid that it was poison in the bottle, and I just avoided the trees. One day, I sat by the fence for 2 hours and cried. My mom sat down on the street with me, and I was crying hysterically and yelling at her, and she got so mad at me.
I would have to leave school early sometimes, and I'd just not go to school at all, or call my parents up in the middle of the day, and I was just being in panic all the time.
My therapist showed me a picture of an island, and my island was invisible, and OCD's island was like the world. And every time you fought against your fears, your island gets bigger and OCD's island gets smaller. My therapist came to my house and she took a leaf and she had me touch it. She took a berry and she had me touch it. She took some dirt and she had me touch it. And I worked up to like touching the tree, putting my cheek on the tree, and then hugging the tree. I can do all of those things right now, which is quite an accomplishment.
I used to have to cover up all 3 of these clocks, and I couldn't look at my phone clock or this clock or any clock, but now I can stand here with 4 clocks and be fine.
I'm on the job hunt, so I've been looking over my resume, and it's making me think about all of the jobs I've had in the past, mostly in the dreaded customer service. Anyone who works with the public knows that the public is crazy. So here are my top 5 weirdest customer service interactions. Number 1, my second job ever, I worked in a Blockbuster Video right after high school. One day, this woman came in and wanted to return this tape and get a refund. Yes, I said tape. I'm old.
Did you say old?
Quiet you. Anyway, this woman said she wanted a refund for the tape. I asked her, what's wrong with it? She said, it's the wrong movie. Oh, is it the wrong tape in the box? No, it says it's the movie Random Hearts, but when I watched it, I don't think there were the right people in the movie. I was obviously confused by this and said, was it that you thought an actor was in the movie and it turns out they weren't? She said, no, it's not that. It looked like Harrison Ford in the movie, but she kind of leaned in conspiratorially. I don't think it's actually Harrison Ford. She then confided in me that she had heard that sometimes people will reshoot popular movies and make fake versions of them and then sell them. I have heard this as well. However, I don't know if it's 100% true, and even if it is, those are not the copies of the movie you'd be renting in a Blockbuster Video. This woman was 100% convinced that someone had shot the entire movie Random Hearts with lookalikes, possibly aliens. When I told her I was really sorry, but there was no way for me to give her a refund, she sighed and said, well, I still think that someone should tell Harrison Ford about this. Do you have his address? Number 2, I was working just a couple of years ago at a call center doing customer service for online pharmacies. This woman had been ordering for us for a while under the name Russell Jones, and she claimed the name was pronounced Lucille. We were trying very hard to prove she was ordering it for somebody else, which is illegal, but we couldn't. So one day she called to place her order. As I pulled up her account, I noticed she had recently changed the email address on file to russelljonesjr@whatever.com. Finally, I had her. I said, ma'am, you just need to tell Russell he needs to order his medication himself from now on. She went, no, it's me. I'm Roussel. I'm Roussel. It's my name. And I said, ma'am, your email address is Russell Jones Jr. And she said, well, that's my son's email address. Ma'am, you mean to tell me your name is spelled like Russell? You married a man named Russell, and when you had a child, you named him Russell as well? Number 3, also from that same call center. Woman was having me place an order for her. One of the questions is, when's the last time you saw your primary care physician? And she said, well, just saw him or saw him for medical reasons? I said, well, medical reasons, a checkup or something like that. I don't just mean if you ran into him at the grocery store. And she said, well, my doctor is also my pastor, and I've been ill lately and we recently had a prayer meeting about it. Does that count? Number 4. I was working at a fabric store and it was about Halloween time. We'd frequently get people trying to make Halloween costumes that weren't quite equipped to put together themselves. One day I was working at the cutting counter. This woman came up with a cart overflowing with fabric and lace and trim. She had thread, she had buttons and zippers. She had bought everything she needed to go with this very complicated Renaissance style pattern that she was planning to buy. I looked at how complicated it was and asked, as gently as I could, ma'am, have you ever sewn something like this before? She said, Well, no, not really. From the tone of her voice, I guess probably the last time she sewed anything was in a high school home ec class. Even with an infinite amount of time, someone who doesn't know how to sew probably wouldn't be able to make a satisfactory version of that dress. But I wanted to let her down easy, so I said, it's a kind of complicated pattern. If you're not used to this kind of thing, it'd probably take you a while. When's the party that you want to wear this to? Figuring she'd say, oh, in a week or two, and I would say that's not enough time, and then hopefully she would understand. Her response? Well, it's tonight at 8. What? Number 5. Worked at a local record store for about 4 years, and I definitely had some weird run-ins there. But possibly the weirdest and most infuriating was when a gentleman came into our store one day. It was pretty slow, and he spent probably an hour browsing. He wasn't in any hurry. Eventually he picked a CD, brought it up to the front. I rang him up, he paid for it, and he left. 10 or 15 minutes passed, and he came back in. He put the CD, which had been unwrapped, on the counter in front of me and pushed it towards me and said, I'd like to undo this transaction. I asked, is there something wrong with the CD? Is it scratched? Is it broken? Wrong disc inside the box? Throw me a bone. His response was, well, since the album was $20, which is kind of expensive, I assumed that it would have lyrics in the booklet, but there are no lyrics in the booklet, so I don't want it. I tried to explain to him that CDs vary in price for a number of reasons. Unfortunately, whether or not there are lyrics in the booklet is not one of these factors. I explained this to him, and he responded with utter disbelief. I further went on to tell him, in the future, if it really mattered to him whether or not a CD had lyrics in the booklet, all he had to do was ask one of us, and we could look it up online. We wouldn't necessarily 100% be able to find that answer, but we could try. He was infuriated. Swore he'd never come to the store again, said he'd tell all of his friends to never shop there, and stormed off. This story, to me, says everything about the level of entitlement that people carry with them into retail and customer service situations. They make a mistake regardless of whether it's their fault. They want you to just undo it. Nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions. Actually, that kind of says a lot about the world in general, doesn't it?